All right, shalom, shalom, y'all.
Shalom,
Shalom.
shalom.
All right, I'll pray. So yeah, um, without further ado, I guess we'll get started into today's lesson, meditation, however you want to call it. Today we doing unity. We continuing in that the strength of a people, and this is part 2B because last week we stopped this particular part. So we're gonna pick up where we left off last week, and this is oneness in self.
All praises.
Uh, I don't know, but you can check
Sounds important.
and just double check. So yeah, all praises. Sorry for the. So yeah, picking up where we left off, we're gonna do that first by going to our disclaimer, right? So the scriptures expressed in this study are those of the author and not my own. Viewer discretion is advised. In the last lesson, we looked at unity and how the goal of the Torah is to bring unity between those that have been joined to the Father's covenant. So we saw an overview of how unity works, but today we will look more specifically at how this works within the individual. All right, so last week we saw that unity represents oneness, and we will see today how we will have to work towards oneness within self to achieve oneness as a community or as a nation of people.
Mm-hmm.
What
All
I will
praise.
also say is this is probably the hardest part of of achieving unity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is probably the most important and the most difficult part
Mm-hmm.
out of the whole process. Because if this part can get done properly as the foundation, then the rest of the pieces of the puzzle just fall in place.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is not right, then it's gonna make every other step along the way that much more difficult.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, Hebrews 4:11, right? We know we got the good old swordsman up there. Um, it says, "Let us therefore do our utmost to enter into that rest, lest anyone fall after the same example of disobedience. For the word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all are naked and laid bare before the eyes of him with whom is our account." Right. So, I mean, y'all see him. We been seeing him, and he gonna do what he do, and anybody that get in the way of it gonna get cut. Right, self included.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, these lessons are not directed at any one person or group, but are intended to be edifying and useful to all who have joined themselves to the covenant of Yahuwah. The Father is impartial and none can avoid him, even the person who is tasked with presenting the lesson, myself. Right? So we are all held to this standard, and none of us are above his ways or corrections and reproofs. Right? Romans 2:1 says, "Therefore, oh man, you are without excuse, everyone who judges, for in which you judge another, you condemn yourself, since you who judge practice the same wrongs. And we know that the judgment of Elohim is according to truth against those who practice such wrongs. And do you think, oh man, you who judge those practicing such wrongs and doing the same, that you shall escape the judgment of Elohim?" Right. So say all that to say that ain't nobody gonna be able to dodge the sword. If when it come in this swing and it cut, it's gonna cut you, right? So up top we got the word of Yahuwah, right? Who the swordsman? We got Mashiach swinging the mugs, and stand in front of it, and you're gonna be like the fella down here below, and right, and that you is not you, is but is me, right? So just know that yeah, any of us can get that business.
Yeah.
All right, so in today's lesson, right? In today's lesson, we will look at this topic a little further. These types of lessons are made to encourage us to keep pushing and fighting the good fight. So their purpose is to edify us by giving us some insight on the work that must be done to become what the Father intends for us to be. All right. So with this being said, they may challenge us a little bit and cause us to bear with the discomfort of having to confront the things within us that are not like the Father. So
Mm-hmm.
while we still may have a ways to go, hopefully we will see the light at the end of the tunnel. Ironically, we were just talking about that.
All praise.
So while we still have today, we can work towards the goal and pursue his righteousness. And it starts with studying his word and learning his ways, like we are doing today, right? So Proverbs 4:10, it says, "Hear my son and accept my words, and let the years of your life be many. I have taught you in the way of wisdom." So that's one way, right? "I have led you in straight paths. When you walk in your steps, when you walk, your steps shall not be hindered. And if you run, you shall not stumble. Become strong in discipline. Do not let go." So to become strong, that means it's going to be some exercising, some working out, some practicing, and some things that you're going to have to do to become strong. Because starting out, you might not be, right? So just keep that in mind. This is a task that you're going to be tasked with. He says, "Watch over her, for she is your life. Do not enter the path of the wrong, and do not walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not pass by it. Turn away from it and pass on. For they do not sleep unless they have done evil, and their sleep is taken away unless they make someone fall. For they have eaten the bread of wrongdoing, and they drink the wine of violence. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, that shines ever brighter unto the perfect day. The way of the wrong is like darkness. They do not know at what they stumble. My son, listen to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. Let them not depart from your eyes. Guard them in the midst of your heart, for they are life to those who find them and healing to all their flesh." My dear, watch over your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the sources of life. Just he said a whole lot there, right? So just notice we got the pictures up top. One at one point is the start of the day, right? And that might be where you might be, right? At the dawn of the day.
Come on.
Right? Yeah, it's some light there, but it's also some darkness there, right? And this is literally is 2 points in the day where the light and the darkness is pretty much at like equal parts, right? You can't necessarily discern is it sunlight or is it darkness, right? It's in the midst of the evenings, as they say, or in the midst of these days, right? Well, there's something to keep in mind. Then you got the picture in the middle. That's the sun is getting brighter and brighter, right? And then the goal, which is high noon, right? The perfect day, sun shining full bright, everything is illuminated, right? And this is the goal and the process that we going on, and this is what Proverbs is talking about, right? Going glory to glory. So there are two ways that govern us all, right? We saw this slide last week, a little bit more on it, but stuff for us to consider, right? The way of the Father leads to life, and this is the way he desires we choose. He gave us all a free will, however, and will not choose for us. He sets these two ways before us, and we are judged based on the choices we make, right? So on one side, we got the Father. It's good, light, wisdom, obedience, straightness, righteousness, life, his Ruach, truth. And we got the kingdom, right? On the other hand, we got Hashatan, which is his ways is evil, darkness, foolishness, and folly, disobedience, crookedness, wickedness, death, flesh, falsehood, and the ways of the world, right? Then you got you in the middle, right? So we talked about it last week, like it's like the Matrix. That you got the red pill or the blue pill, right? And you got you in the middle. You got red and blue, but when red and blue get mixed together, you get some purple. And we got that's each decision that you make pulls from one of these two sides and requires a choice from you, right? So whichever decision you make, you're gonna be pulling from one of these two sides, and you're gonna find that a lot of times you're gonna have a mixture in the middle, in between, right? And the goal is that you start eliminating this mixture and that you get either hot or cold, right? So it's a tug of war. You see the two men here, they're fighting and warring between these two sides, right? And you the rope in the middle getting pulled one way or the other. But just keep in mind that one of these sides eventually gonna get wore out and one of them gonna win, right? The way that it's gonna work. So where do you stand in this tug of war? That's the question, right? For most of us, self included, if we are being honest, the whole of our identity does not fully rest on one side or the other. If you were to make a diagram for yourself, how would the section in the middle look? Right? How would the purple section look? Would it be red? Would it be more red? Would it be more blue? Right? Like, is it still gonna be purple? Like, which side are we gonna end up on? Right? If you were to make the same diagram when you first started this walk, would it look any different from the way it looks today? Something to consider, because if it looks the same,
Yeah.
then we might have an issue, especially if we've been in a walk for a while, right? That means there's still quite a bit of work to do. Is it more blue than when you first started? Right? If that's the case, then we got a problem, right? If it's more red, all praises, but we still got some ways to go until it's all red, right? And even in the event that such a man can get it all red, it's going to be some work to make sure that it stays all red.
That part.
Just, again, some things for us to consider, right? So, are there still things that would look the same in the middle section that come from the right side and not from the left side of the chart, right? And if it's still some of them things that's in blue in the middle that's making your mixture from, instead of it being red, be purple, then identify those things and really we're going to have to work on them, right? But that's part of that glory to glory. Each day, let it get brighter and brighter and brighter into the perfect day, right? All praises. So the goal for us is that all the ways of the Father prevail in us, right? This is no easy task and is a daily fight. So you will win some battles and you will lose some battles. Ultimately, the goal is that the war is won within by choosing the Father's side. It may look grim at times, but through choosing the ways of Mashiach Yahushua, which are the ways of the Father that sent him, we can prevail, right? So last week we talked about humility. We talked about not being arrogant. We're going to look at how all of this stuff is going to work today, right? And really understanding the fight that's before us. But then also with that understanding the win that's in it for all of us, right? So y'all had to excuse me for my sense of humor. But you know, the visual representations bring a little life to what we're looking at. So you see under the tug of war, you got these two sides that's warring and fighting. Then at the bottom, this is the goal. This is what's gonna have to happen, right? The side of the red is gonna have to kick the blue to the side. Go ahead and give them that business, right? So this is what we aiming for. All right, so the two ways. So from here, we will look at some expounding text on these two ways. So last week we was looking at these two ways, and we started to dive into it. Today we're gonna pick up more where we left off, and we're gonna peel back even more layers of this onion and realize really what it is that we up against. So some of them you may be familiar with, and some of them you may not, right? So my aim here is to dig a little bit deeper into some of the historical ways that they understood these two ways and their origins, right? So hopefully this will give us some insight on navigating these two ways today, right? So this will not be an exhaustive look at this topic, but we will get a glimpse of how these two ways not only exist inwardly, but also outside of self as well. Right. So something to keep in mind as we continue. Matthew 7:13, it says, enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter in through it. So that's one way. Then verse 14, he says, because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life. And there are few who find it. This is another way, right? Now, remember, we saw last week in Deuteronomy right? When we looked at Deborah in Deuteronomy 30, where he's like, I set before you this day life and death, the blessing and the curse. This, therefore, choose life, right? So notice that with this choosing of life, is it going to be the easy way or is it going to be the hard way? He said it's hard pressed. It's gonna be the hard way, right? Few gonna find it, right? It ain't. This is not the. This is the narrow way. This is gonna be the difficult way. But we still, like sis brought out last week, commanded to do what? Choose the life. So it can be done. Just really realize the battle that's before you, so that you can gird your loins to be prepared to war in it the right way, right? I'd be alive if I made it seem like it was gonna be easy, or like, you know, it's just that easy to be figured out, or like even I can stand here like, oh, I got it all figured out, right? Like, again, this is we waging, for lack of better terms, as we'll see in a little bit, the war of eternity, right? And it's starting within us. So, not to give too many spoilers, because I'm already starting to get ahead of myself. So, Sirach 33 verse 1. Right, it says, there shall no evil happen unto him that feareth Yahuwah, but in temptation, even again, he will deliver him. A wise man hateth not the law, but he that is a hypocrite therein is as a ship in a storm. A man of understanding trusteth in the law, and the law is faithful unto him as an oracle. Prepare what to say, and so thou shalt be heard. And bind up instruction, and then make an answer. The heart of the foolish is like a cartwheel, and his thoughts are like a rolling axle tree. A stallion horse is as a mocking friend. He neigheth under everyone that sitteth upon him. Why doth one day excel another, when as all the light of every day in the year is of the sun? By the knowledge of Yahuwah they were distinguished, and he altered seasons and feasts. By some of them he have made high days, and hallowed them. And some of them he have made ordinary days. And all men are from the ground, and Adam was created of earth. In much knowledge Yahuwah have divided them, and made their ways diverse. Some of them have he blessed and exalted, and some of them, he sanctified and set near himself. But some of them he have cursed and brought low, and turned out of their places. As the clay is in the potter's hand, to fashion it at his pleasure, so man is in the hand of him that made him, to render to them as liketh him best. Good is set apart against evil, and life against death. So is the righteous against the sinner, and the sinner against the wicked. Or in the sinner, against the, I'm thinking ungodly, against the righteous, right? So look upon all the works of the Most High, and there are two and two, one against another, right? So it's two ways. And when you look at all the ways of the Father and how he created things, you're going to find that there's this duality of nature of all things, right? For light, when he created light and light was told, there was also darkness. He separated the two, and that was told, right? Waters above, waters below, dry ground from the waters, right? You're going to find that in all of these things that he created, there's a balance, and there's a dual nature, or two sides of every coin, I should say, right? But we're going to see that it's going to be for us, just like it was with that tree, this good and this evil. We're going to see life and death. We're going to see that there's a choosing that we have to do, and that's what life is about, right? The life that we're living is about, right? Because us living can either be a determination that we either choose in death or life. So this is really like audition to which stage we're going to be on forever, right? All right, so Dead Sea Scrolls, right? And just for any of those that's not familiar, Dead Sea Scrolls, body of text that was found in the Qumran area, Dead Sea area, preserved. They're thousands of years old. These were written before the time of Mashiach had even come, right? In the flesh, anyhow. And so, very old text, and they can give us a glimpse or some insight on just how things were understood from a historical perspective, right? This is 1QS 3 and 6. We're gonna read through 4 and 25, right? This is a scroll called the Community Rule, or the Rules of the Community, for anybody that's interested. But they speak on these two ways, right? They had an understanding of these two ways, and thought it would be beneficial for us to look at what they have in them, right? So it says, the master shall instruct all the sons of light and teach them the nature of all the children of men according to the kind of spirit which they possess, the signs identifying their works during their lifetime, their visitation for chastisement, and the time of their reward. From the Elohim of knowledge comes all that is and shall be. Before ever they existed, he established their whole design, and when, as ordained for them, they come into being, it is in accord with his glorious design that they accomplish their task without change. The laws of all things are in his hand, and he provides them with all their needs. He has created man to govern the world and has appointed for him two spirits in which to walk until the time of his visitation, the spirits of truth and injustice. So here they have this understanding of these two ways, right? And in order for a man to be able to govern or hold the position of dominion in the earth, man is going to have to understand these two ways, right? So now notice that we didn't take of the fruit initially of this mixture, right? There's just this tree of life that's in the center, and you can eat from it. But then there's this tree with this mixture. And so now that this mixture is taken, you're going to have to discern between these two, right? The tree of life is blocked, and you're going to have to separate this good from this evil if you're trying to get back to this life, right? So just notice how all of this is at play, right? And now in man, these two ways are presented before us, right? This mixed pot, this mixed bag of both good and evil, and it's for us to choose. It says, these born of truth, or those born of truth, spring from a fountain of light, but those born of injustice spring from a source of darkness. All the children of righteousness are ruled by the Prince of Light. So just keep in mind that there is a Prince of Light that governs over the ways of light and walk in the ways of light. But all the children of injustice are ruled by the angel of darkness, or the messenger of darkness, and walk in the ways of darkness. Now, that should already ring some bells for us of things that we've heard in the canonical text, right? That there's this Prince of Light, or these children of light, if you will, right? First John talks about these children of light and how we might know them, right? Then we got this one that is a messenger of darkness. Now, we know that according to the text that the messenger of darkness can also masquerade or appear as a messenger of light, but really is of darkness, right? So just keep all of this in mind. It says, the messenger of darkness leads all the children of righteousness astray. So you can be a child of light and can get led astray. Right now, how would this happen? Could it be through this masquerading as one of light, and now you've been deceived to partake in ways of darkness? Could that be the case? Just throwing that out there. And until his end, all their sin, iniquities, wickedness, and all their unlawful deeds are caused by his dominion in accordance with the mysteries of Elohim. Every one of their chastisements in every one of the seasons of their distress. So we was talking about seasons earlier as well. So things can come in waves and seasons. Shall be brought about by the rule of his persecution. For all of his allotted spirits seek the overthrow of the sons of light. So it's not just one, but he also has some minions under his control. Okay. But the Elohim of Israel and his messenger, angel of truth, will succor all the sons of light. For it is he who created the spirits of light and darkness and founded every action upon them and established every deed upon their ways. So the Father is over both sides of this thing. And he loves the one everlastingly and delights in its works forever, but the counsel of the other he loathes and forever hates its ways. These are their ways in the world for the enlightenment of the heart of man. So be it that we have this mixture of both what? Light and darkness, good and evil. Both ways are set before us, so that when we partake of both of these ways, those that are truly of the side of light will choose the ways of light, and they will be therefore enlightened, right? So this is literally what this whole battle, this daily battle that we go through is about, right? Well, he says, I'll just start over. It says, these are the ways in the world for the enlightenment of the heart of man, and so that all the paths of true righteousness may be made straight before him, and so that the fear of the laws of Elohim may be instilled in his heart, a spirit of humility, patience, abundant charity, unending goodness, understanding, and intelligence, a spirit of mighty wisdom which trusts in all the deeds of Elohim and leans on his great loving kindness, a spirit of discernment in every purpose, of zeal for just laws, of set apart a holy intent with steadfastness of heart, of great charity towards all the sons of truth, of admirable purity which detest all unclean idols, of humble conduct sprung from an understanding of all things, and a faithful concealment of the mysteries of truth. These are the counsels of the Spirit to the sons of truth in this world. And as for the visitation of all who walk in this spirit, it shall be healing, great peace, and a long life, and fruitfulness, together with every everlasting blessing, and eternal joy, and life without end, a crown of glory, and a garment of majesty, and unending light. Sounds like some other things that we are familiar with, right? And mind you, this was written before all of that, right? This is written before any New Testament text was written. So there was a certain understanding that they had going into the days of Mashiach that carried on even past those days of Mashiach, right? So just again showing that, yeah, y'all get what y'all useful. I'm gonna just put it that way, useful. All right, so it says, but the ways of, I'm sorry, let me go back. It says a crown of glory and a garment of majesty and unending light. But the ways of the spirit of falsehood are these: greed and slackness in the search for righteousness, wickedness and lies, haughtiness and pride, falseness and deceit, cruelty and abundant evil, ill temper and much folly and brazen insolence, abominable deeds committed in the spirit of lust, and ways of lewdness in the service of uncleanness, a blaspheming tongue, blindness of eye and dullness of ear, stiffness of neck, and heaviness of heart, so that man walks in all the ways of darkness and guile. So just keep that list in mind, but really both of these two lists in line, right? says, "And the visitation of all who walk in this spirit shall be a multitude of plagues by the hand of all the destroying angels, everlasting damnation by the avenging wrath of the fury of Elohim, eternal torment and endless disgrace, together with shameful extinction in the fire of the dark regions. The times of all their generation shall be spent in sorrowful mourning," or weeping, right? This bitterness, this weeping, this gnashing of teeth, if you will, "and in bitter misery and in the calamities of darkness until they are destroyed without remnant or survivor. The nature of all the children of men is ruled by these two spirits, or these two ruachs," right? So this fight is common to all mankind, right? These two ways are before all mankind, right? But mind you, going back to the first part of it, there is a difference between these quote unquote sons of light and sons of darkness, right? We're gonna find out what it is. He says, "And during their life, all the hosts of men have a portion of their divisions and walk in both their ways." That's the purple, right? "And the whole reward for their deeds shall be for everlasting ages." So whatever you do now, your reward is going to be forever, whether it's in the light or the darkness. "According to whether each man's portion in their two divisions is great or small. For Elohim has established the spirits in equal measure until the final age, and has set every hatred between their divisions. Truth abhors the works of injustice, and injustice hates all the ways of truth. And their struggle is fierce, and all their arguments." So something about those arguments, we know that there's a certain, right, warring that's not carnal, but mighty in Elohim, and is casting down certain arguments and ready to put to shame every work of disobedience, right? Like, so just keep all of this in mind, what they're talking about. And mind you, this was written beforehand. So it says, "And at the time of their visitation, he will destroy it forever." I'm sorry. I picked up at the wrong spot. I'm going to just start over at that fourth paragraph. All praises. It says, "And their struggle is fierce in all their arguments, for they do not walk together. But the mysteries of his understanding and his glorious wisdom, Elohim has ordained an end for injustice. And at the time of the visitation, he will destroy it forever. Then truth, which has wallowed in the ways of wickedness during the dominion of injustice until the appointed time of judgment, shall arise in the world forever. Elohim will then purify every deed of man with his truth." So something about his truth, you will have to know what his truth is, find out what the ways of truth are. And something about that is purification. Okay, all praises. "He will refine for himself the human frame by rooting out all spirit of injustice from the bounds of his flesh. He will cleanse him of all wicked deeds with the spirit of holiness or set apartness. Like purifying waters, he will shed upon him the spirit of truth to cleanse him of all abomination and injustice. And he shall be plunged into the spirit of purification, that he may instruct the upright in the knowledge of the Most High and teach the wisdom of the sons of heaven to the perfect, or the sons of heaven to the perfect of way. For Elohim has chosen them for an everlasting covenant, and all the glory of Adam shall be theirs." So it's a restoration that the Father is trying to bring forth. This is how we're going to achieve it, right? By navigating these two ways. "There shall be no more lies, and all the works of injustice shall be put to shame. Until now, the spirits of truth and injustice struggle within the hearts of men, and they walk in both wisdom and folly. According to his portion of truth, so does a man hate injustice. Mm. So the more or the larger the portion of truth you get in you, the more you're going to hate the ways of injustice, right? Remember, he said both ways are presented equally. And then we talked about the two ways that get fed, right? With the two wolves. The more you start to feed the one, the more the one is going to get neglected, right? And so this is how this process is and how this battle is waged within us. This is that process of the glory to glory, right? So he said, I'm going to start over. Until now, the spirits of truth and injustice struggle in the hearts of men, and they walk in both wisdom and folly. According to his portion of truth, so does a man hate injustice. And according to his inheritance in the realm of injustice, so is he wicked and so hates truth. For Elohim has established the two spirits in equal measure until the determined end and until the renewal, and he knows the reward of their deeds from all eternity. He has allotted them to the children of men that they may know good and evil. I'm going to say that again. He has allotted them to the children of men that they may know good and evil, that the destiny of all the living may be according to the spirit within them at the time of the visitation. Real deep right there. So this is why he says in another place, like, better seek on why it's still called the day, right? Because we don't know when that day or that hour might be, right? So while you still got today, choose them, right? And this is the way that this battle is waged on a day-to-day basis, right? Sometimes it's going to look grim. Sometimes it's going to be difficult. But while you still got air in your lungs, keep fighting a good fight. Keep fighting a good fight. Keep making a decision to choose the good over the evil or the light over the darkness. The more you do that, the more it's an opportunity, like Ak brings out in his lessons, for you to sin not, right? It can be an opportunity to sin, or it could be an opportunity to sin not, right? And we're going to eat from one side or the other of it, right? So just some things to keep in mind. Yeah, just some things to keep in mind.
Yes, I was just going to say it's told information to know, because some people live their lives never understanding why they battle with certain things. So no, you're battling that within yourself, because you literally good and evil, and you have to choose the better half. But some people, depression can occur, sadness, trying to figure out, why am I this way? Well, no, this is, once sin entered into the world, and they chose to eat from the tree of good and evil, this is what we have. So it's just really good information to be able to understand that about yourself, so you can be able to start working on, choosing good and not evil.
All praises. That's told. Like, that's the goal of this lesson, is to show, that it's worth putting up the fight and there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like, that's an excellent point that you made. It's an excellent point that you made. But yeah, with this, we know that the battle, it can be won, and it's worth fighting the battle, because this is why it's here, and it's here to test and prove us, so that ultimately we'll be called worthy at the day of his visitation. So yeah, all praises. All right, so this is from a document called the Didache that was found. This is a document that is roughly 1st century AD. So it's right around the time, I would say shortly after Mashiach. They attribute this document to the apostles. Whether or not that is accurate or not, I leave it up to you to search out for yourself. But this is a document from the time and the days of all of Mashiach's disciples, shortly in, like, I would say, like the days of Acts, right? So the Didache, 1 verse 1, it says, there are two ways, one of life and one of death, but a great difference between the two ways. So we keep saying it, and all of these places where we going, they understand this, and they saying the same thing, right? The way of life then is this: first, you shall love Elohim who made you. Second, your neighbor as yourself. That's what we were going over. And all things whatsoever you would should not occur to you, do not also do to another. Then if you look at the Didache, they continue to break down all of the 10 matters or the 10 words, the 10 commandments. They start going through the list, right? So just as a sidebar, not to get off topic, but for anyone that says like the church age is not about keeping the Torah and things like that, like the writers of this document, which this document claims to have been written by the apostles themselves. And this was like the creed that they all agreed to, is how it's presented. This Didache was like a document that they all came to agree and say, this is what we're gonna make sure that all of the assemblies that we set up, they understand this. And it talks about keeping the Shabbat, and it talks about all of those things within it, and keeping his Torah and the importance of keeping the Torah. And this was, again, first century, what they would call, what the scholars would call early church. So just anybody, that wants that to be able to say, hey, like, no, his father's laws ain't went nowhere. And even those in the original, building of this quote unquote church, as they call it, they understood this. That's a document that's worth looking at. Right. So the Didache. All right. So Barnabas, right? This letter of Barnabas, 18:1, right? And again, I'm not trying to express that all of these are quote unquote scripture or anything like that. Well, all I'm saying is that these are historical documents to show you that across the board, in all of the different factions, there was some agreement with understanding these two ways, right? And there's some wisdom that can be gained by them. I'm not saying everything in these books are, quote unquote, to be taken as gospel, right? Because we're gonna look in Second Enoch here in a second, and there are some things that I would say, Second Enoch, you might have to take with a grain of salt. But what I can say is, from a historical context, this thing was one thing that it was not no mystery. This was a thing that everybody had to understand it for. But when we look at today, like you were bringing up just a moment ago, it's a battle that is not necessarily taught, expounded on. And because of that, there's a level of hopelessness that can come with it. There's a level of, there's all sorts of other things. So I don't want to get sidetracked, but I'm going to continue, right? So Barnabas 18:1, it says, but let us pass on to another lesson in teaching. There are two ways of teaching and of power, the one of light and the other of darkness. And there's a great difference between the two ways. It sounds just like the exact same thing that we just read, right? Everybody agrees with this. He says, for on the one are stationed the light giving angels of Elohim. And on the other, the angels of Hashatan, or the messengers of Hashatan. And the one is the Adonai from all eternity and unto all eternity, whereas the other is the Adonai of the season of iniquity that now is. So there's one ruler over darkness, and there's one ruler over light. One is for eternity, and one is for this time and season, for this age, right? So he says, this then is the way of light. If anyone desiring to travel on the way to his appointed place would be zealous in his works. So if you're trying to get to the destination or the kingdom that light is leading you, this is what he's going to tell you. The knowledge then which is given to us whereby we may walk therein is as follows. You shall love him that made thee. Sound like the same thing that Didache was saying, right? Love you who are your Elohim. Okay. He says, And thou shalt fear him that created thee, and thou shalt esteem him that redeemed thee from death. You shall be simple in heart and rich in spirit. You shall not cleave to those who walk the way of death. You shall hate everything that is not pleasing to Elohim. You shall hate all hypocrisy. You shall never forsake the commandments of Yahuwah. Another one of these quote unquote documents from the early church age that shows you. No, this was the understanding that they had, but we're going to continue. Right? Second Enoch, verse 30 says this. It says, or Second Enoch, chapter 30 starts at this. It says, and I gave him his free will, speaking of Adam, and I pointed out to him the two ways, light and darkness. And I said to him, this is good for you, but that is bad, so that I might come to know whether he has love toward me or abhorrence, and so that it might become plain who among his race loves me. Excuse me. Whereas I have come to know his nature. Excuse me. He does not know his own nature. So it's something about the Father that he knows about us that we don't know about ourselves. Right? So this journey and this path, this presenting before us these two ways is for you to do what? Get to know you as he knows you. Right? You need to know the you that he knows. So that way you can start saying, okay, well, no, that thing right there, that's not the ways of the Father. I need to turn from that thing. I got to correct that thing. These are the ways of the Father. I need to strengthen myself in these things. Right? But if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and know what manner of man you are, this is going to be, it's a vain fight to fight, right? You ain't going to get nowhere in it. All right, so he says, that is why ignorance is more lamentable than the sin such as it is in him to sin. My dear. And I said, after sin, there is nothing for it but death. Real deep.
So just real quick. So is that saying like basically the reason why, like for the people of Yahuwah, we cry because of ignorance, like not knowing the sin or not knowing the reason why, or maybe sinning, but like let's say if it wasn't like willful sin, if you did not do it on purpose, then when you find out, you lament, you cry, like you mourn because of lack of ignorance. Is that what that was saying just now?
So I mean that can be an aspect of it, but okay. I think what he's getting at here is the ignorance is to be in the state of ignorance, right? And to not know the light, right? Like it said in Proverbs, right? It says that the fool stumbles in darkness and doesn't know at what he stumbled. This is that state of ignorance, right? You walking in darkness and you're gonna pay the penalty of darkness. Like he said, I mean, and for sin is nothing, there's nothing for it but death. And you gonna die and you didn't even have the eyes to be able to see what it was that where you stumbled, right? So he's saying it's one thing to sin and to say, all right, no, that's what it was. Shine some light on that thing. It's one thing to sin, but at least I got some light. I can turn away from that thing because I have knowledge of it. I know, I understand where I went wrong, right? This is that process of the glory to glory, right? This is where it talks about in another place, the righteous man might fall 7 times, but yet gets back up still. But then it's talking about on the flip side of it, being in a state of ignorance and saying like, no, you don't even realize where you fell or that you fallen.
Oh, I see. Okay. So
you don't even realize and don't even see it. So it's like what it was talking about in James, right? Like, and it's one thing, like James points it out and shows you what can cause you to be in that state, right? It's not that the Father's reproof and correction ain't coming and that he not showing you, but you can be put in the state to where of blindness and madness where you refusing to see it, right? He says like this arrogance or this, like we was talking about last week, this pride, right? He says you'll be like a man that looks into a mirror and forgets what manner of man he is, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting from.
Okay, so the lamentable. Okay, so basically, like you didn't know versus you knew and you did it anyway, type thing.
Well, that's
understand.
why, like, yeah, he's saying like you don't even, you haven't even realized your own nature, right? So you thinking, no, I'm justified,
Uh-huh.
but you ain't even realized now you looking a hot mess in the eyes of the Father,
Okay.
right?
Forgive me.
Now, all praises. The floor is yours.
It's deep because when you think about the nature of sin, it's going to bring death as it reproduces. That's the only result. It cannot bring forth life.
Mm-hmm.
The nature of poison. No matter what you put it in, rather in a human body, you put it in a garden, in a plant bed, it's not going to bring forth life. It's only going to bring death.
Mm-hmm.
If we were not ignorant and fully understood that sin is equal to poison, nobody would ever choose sin. Nobody would ever choose to ingest poison. So it's more of a reason to cry when you realize what ignorance does to a person than just the sin.
Mm-hmm.
The ignorance is something more to cry about because he instructed our people from the beginning. Teach your children.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you need to teach your children, because if they don't know better, they're going to choose death. Why?
Mm-hmm.
This environment brings it out of you.
Mm-hmm.
The angels came down here and were overcome by the evil inclination.
Mm-hmm.
So to be ignorant that this environment will bring the worst out of you and not know what you ought to be doing, that's a bigger reason to cry than just sin itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm. All praises.
Yeah.
All praises. Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, right? This is another one of those documents, text from that same time period. And it just it has something really interesting in it, right? And basically, as this is, it's like these were the words, how the book is presented. These were the words of each of the 12 patriarchs on their deathbed when they gave their final speech to the next generations. Ironically, as we was just talking about, as I was just bringing out, teaching those ways of life to the next generation. They're presented as this is that dying speech, right? So this is Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. This comes from the Testament of Asher, right? So it says, the copy of the Testament to Asher, what things he spake to his sons in the 125th year of his life. It says, for the while he was still in health, he said to them, hearken, you children of Asher, to your father, and I will declare to you all that is upright in sight of Yahuwah. 2 ways have Elohim given to the sons of men, and 2 inclinations, and 2 kinds of action, and 2 modes of action, and 2 issues. Out of the heart pour out the issues of life. Okay. He says, therefore, all things are by twos, one over against the other. Again, we see the same thing. For there are 2 ways of good and evil, and with these are the 2 inclinations in our breast or in our hearts, discriminating them. Therefore, if the soul take pleasure in the good inclination, all its actions are in righteousness, and if it sin, it straightway repenteth. So, just something to consider, right? For having its thoughts set upon righteousness And casting away wickedness is straightway overthroweth the evil and uprooteth the sin. But if it incline to the evil inclination, all its actions are in wickedness, and it driveth away the good, and cleaves to the evil, and is ruled by Beliar or Belial. Even though it work what is good, he perverteth it to evil. All praises. But if it incline to the evil inclination, all his actions are in wickedness, and it driveth away the good, and cleaveth to the evil, and is ruled by Belial. Even though it work what is good, he perverteth it to evil. For whenever it begins to do good, he forces the issue of the action into evil for him, seeing that the treasure of the inclination is filled with an evil spirit. A person then may with words help the good for the sake of the evil, yet the issue of the action leads to mischief. Something to keep in mind. We're gonna continue. We're gonna break this down. We were talking about it last week, right? Well, he gonna continue to break this thing down. Now, just keep in mind the first slide, our intro slide, the swordsman, right? Hebrews 4. Father does what? Can divide between these two things within you, right? He gonna see and he can judge every intention of the heart. But he gonna be able to tell, right? All praises. So it says, there is a man who showeth no compassion upon him who serveth his turn in evil. And this thing hath two aspects, but the whole is evil. So what is he saying here now? So he's saying you got two ways, right? But keep in mind, like Akot brought out last week, not making a choice between the two, the end is going to be what? Evil, right? Everybody have a little bit of good, and everybody have the best person have a little bit of good, or the worst person has a little bit of good. The best person has a little bit of evil, right? At least in all cases, right? Just keep in mind that with that balance, you're not going to be able, if you're an evil or wicked individual, to do that little bit of good and think it's going to outweigh all of the evil. And it's not how it's going to work.
There it is. Scales. Things being weighed in the balance.
All praises.
Inclination of the heart, your intentions.
All praises. Go ahead.
Nope, getting ahead of myself. All praises.
All praises. All praises. It says, and there is a man that loveth him that worketh evil, because he would prefer even to die in evil for his sake. And concerning this, it is clear that it hath two aspects, but the whole is an evil work. Though indeed he have love, yet is he wicked, who concealeth what is evil for the sake of the good name. But the end of the action fendeth unto evil. Another stealeth, doeth unjustly, plundereth, defraudeth, and withal pitieth the poor. This too have a twofold aspect, but the whole is evil. Robin Hood, right? I'm gonna steal from the rich, but I could defend the poor, and that's I'm gonna sell this poison to my community, but when Thanksgiving come, I'm gonna give out turkeys. When Christmas come, I'm gonna give out toys.
Come on, man.
Right?
But a whole generation has been destabilized. So what's that turkey gonna do? Help me last longer in my downtrodden nation? Like it doesn't it doesn't balance out for the toad. Excellent examples.
All praises. He's verse 15. Are we at? Yep, verse 15. It says, He who defraudeth his neighbor provoketh Elohim, and sweareth falsely against the Most High, and yet pitieth the poor. Yahuwah, who commanded the law, he setteth at naught and provoketh, and yet he refresheth the poor. He defileth the soul, and maketh happy or gay the body. My Father, happy the body. He killeth many and pitieth a few. This too hath a twofold aspect, but the whole is evil. Another committeth adultery and fornication, and abstaineth from meats, and when he fasteth, he doeth evil, and by the power of his wealth overwhelmeth many, and notwithstanding his excessive wickedness, he doeth the commandments. This too have a twofold aspect, but the whole is evil. Such men are hares, or like rabbits, right? Clean, like those that divide the hoof, but in very deed are unclean, right? He said that the rabbit is an unclean animal, right? Or the pig is an unclean animal, right? The pig has a divided hoof, but it eats not, it doesn't chew the cud, right? So therefore the whole of it is unclean, right? The hare has, it eats, chews the cud, but the hoof isn't divided. Therefore the whole of it is unclean, right? So this is what he's talking about here, right? He says, for Elohim in the tables of the commandments have thus declared, but do not ye, my children, wear two faces like unto them, of goodness and of wickedness, but cleave unto goodness only, for Elohim have his habitation therein, and men desire it. But from wickedness flee away, destroying the evil inclination by your good works, for they that are double-faced serve not Elohim, but their own lust, so that they may please Belial and men like unto themselves. For good men, even they that are of a single face, the oneness, the wholeness.
If thine eye be single,
all praises. Though they be thought by them that are double-faced to sin, are just before Elohim. So just something, again, keep in mind, right? Jumping down verse 23. He says, for many in killing the wicked do two works, of good and evil. That's the mixture. But the whole is good, because he have uprooted and destroyed that which is evil. One man hateth the merciful and unjust man, and the man who committeth adultery and fasteth. This too have a twofold aspect, but the whole work is good, because he followeth Yahuwah's example, in that he accepteth not the seeming good as the genuine good. So there's a way that seemeth right to a man, but the end there is death, right? He didn't choose that, but he leaned on the ways of Yahuwah and not his own understanding. Another desireth to see good day. We was talking about that, Proverbs 4. With them that not, lest he defile his body and pollute his soul. This too is double-faced, but the whole is good. For such men are like to stags and to hinds, because in the manner of wild animals they seem to be unclean, but they are altogether clean, because they walk in zeal for Yahuwah and abstain from what Elohim have hated and forbiddeth by his commandments, warding off the evil from the good. You see, my children, how that there are two in all things, one against the other, and the one is hidden by the other. In wealth is hidden covetousness, in conviviality drunkenness, in laughter grief, in wedlock profligacy. Death succeeds to life, dishonor to glory, night to day, and darkness to light. And all things are under the day, just things under life, unjust things under death. Wherefore also eternal life awaiteth death. Nor may it be said that truth is a lie, nor right wrong. For all truth is under the light, even as all things are under Elohim. Right? Not going to get ahead of myself. All these things, therefore, I proved in my life, and I wandered not from the truth of Yahuwah. And I searched out the commandments of the Most High, walking according to all my strength with singleness of face unto that which is good, or told. Take heed, therefore, you also, my children, to the commandments of Yahuwah. Excuse me. Following the truth with singleness of face. For they that are double-faced are guilty of a twofold sin. For they both do the evil thing, and they have a pleasure in them that do it. Romans. Following the example of the spirits of deceit and striving against mankind. Do you therefore, my children, keep the law of Yahuwah and give not heed unto evil as unto good. But look unto the thing that is really good and keep it in all the commandments of Yahuwah, having your conversation therein and resting therein. For the latter ends of men do show their righteousness or unrighteousness. When they meet the angels or the messengers of Yahuwah and of Satan. For when the soul departs troubled, it is tormented by the evil spirit, which also is served in lust and evil works. But if he is peaceful with joy, he meeteth the angel of peace, or the messenger of peace, and he leadeth him into eternal life. So something to consider about these two ways, right? One is you have a righteous inclination. One is you have an evil inclination, right? You want to be judged based off of either one, right? The man of wickedness, though he might do some things told, has an evil inclination. The whole is evil. Righteous man, even though he might have some works that are evil, the inclination is told, and the end thereof is told, or righteousness. It's all about how your scale is going to be balanced. And the Father can judge between the two, right? That's the sword coming back and forth, swinging back and forth. It's just something to keep in mind, right? What are the things that you take delight and pleasure in? Evil. If that's the case, and those that do evil, right? I ain't never touched the dope pack. Like I'm just give this as an example, but that's the homie though. Man, you sure are. You killing it in his new whip. You stay fresh. Always trying to be in a mix with that individual, then you're gonna see like which side really is the inclination of your heart leaning towards, right? So just these are all things to keep in mind. And I also want to say that ignorance point is a good point to bring out, because there are some that wrestle in war, even in selling a poison. This is what they was introduced to. And it's like, nah, I got to get out of this. Right. And they end up eventually making that choice to get out of the game and trying to repent for all of the evil that they did in their ignorance. Yes. Right. So it's both ways. But, eventually, like you said, you're going to die. And in one of these states, you're going to be met by one side or the other. So just something to consider.
Yeah, it is deep. Thinking back on the segment where you're talking about the Father's visitation, we should become aware that his visitation doesn't necessarily mean at your death. Mm-hmm. He quite often sends his messengers to visit and gauge our condition on this side of it, especially when we take it upon ourselves to learn his ways. Mm-hmm. It's It's cyclical at multiple points throughout the year. There's appointed times, and then he has the ability to choose a time that isn't appointed
Mm-hmm.
for that thorough inspection when you're not putting on your best face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And I want to point out too. Can y'all hear me?
Con.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wanted to point out too, just listening to this and thinking on, the other scriptures that it succors or bolsters up that are in the canonized scripts.
Mm-hmm.
This is why that argument of it, just looking at it at a broader schedule, or not schedule, but in a broader perspective. This is why thinking about where this place that we live in, the argument to quote unquote pick the lesser of two evils doesn't make any sense
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to what we're upholding within this system. Notice this is exactly the reason why he tells us and commands his: number one, choose life; number two, clean the good; number three, depart up out of her, my people, flee from even the appearance of evil. Because just thinking on how so much in this system operates, like, yeah, you might do a couple of things that are told or that are good to the eyes,
Mm-hmm.
but the whole thereof is ultimately evil. And so when we are agreeing with something just because of the few little things that we saw that might be told, or few little things that might be good, for example, on one hand we look at all these charities that show us these pictures of these third world countries and stuff like that, like, oh, look at these people, send money to help them out. And then we find out later on, no, it's because of our country that has gone in and caused unrest and chaos that they're in this position and condition in the first place. And now when we send them money, they're not even getting the money. The money is being pocketed by these .orgs or, nonprofit organizations, being pocketed by those higher ups and so on and so forth. And so when we're agreeing with these certain things, like, we're agreeing with the whole of the evil. We're not just agreeing with the few told things that they claim to do or claim to be. No, we're agreeing with the wholeness of it. And if the whole of it is evil, we're in agreement with evil.
Mm-hmm.
So
All praises. All praises. Did you have something?
I just wanted to add to that. It makes me think about Revelation chapter 3,
Mm-hmm.
verses 15 through 16. I know your works, that you are neither cold nor hot. I would that you were cold or hot. So, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to vomit you out of my mouth. And so it just kind of goes along with that, not choosing. And then, of course, as everyone is mentioning, Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 30, where he says, I set before you life and good, death and evil. It's interesting because the Father was trying to prevent this in the first place. That's why he said, eat from the tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
Not or if you eat from the tree of good and evil, you will die. He
Mm-hmm.
gave a choice in the beginning, but this was why he was trying to prevent that, But now we have to struggle, we have to battle, we have to fight. But hallelujah that he has given us a choice. We just have to choose life and choose the good. And so just all of this, just agrees and goes in line with what the scriptures are saying. And it's deep. Abu Hua definitely did not want this for us, but here we are. And if we just endure to the end, we can make it.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is the kingdom of Elohim. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All praises. All praises. All right. So these two ways, right? With this being said, we see that not only do these two ways exist within you, they are also present outside of you as well, right? So there's some entities or some, powers, if you will, some Elohims, if you will, that govern over these two ways. So just also keep in mind that we saw in Dead Sea Scrolls how Hashatan and his little minions, they might come with some encouragements and everything else, right? So just keep that in mind. You're gonna have to know you in order to know what the play is. I would put it like that, right? So each of these two ways and the governing agents over these two ways strive with one another. Each of us were designed with free will and an ability to operate out of both spirits. Both paths are present in each of us, and the more we live, we travel one path or the other with every decision we make, right? So each of us may still have a mixture of light and darkness within us. The question for you to answer will be, how does the Father see me? Am I following the path of the sun as it rises or as it sets? Am I coming out of the darkness into the marvelous light, or am I going into the darkness? This is something that only you can search for yourself. As we can see, without any context to the pictures that we have here on the right, these snapshots could easily be captioned with the opposite time frame, and we would not be able to tell any difference, right? So in other words, they both look the same, right? But one is going in one direction and the other is moving in the opposite, right? So in both of these points of time, both light and darkness exist. The question is, which force is growing stronger and which force is growing weaker? Is the light growing stronger or is the darkness growing stronger? This will be what determines which course you are on, right? And that should be a period at the end, but all praises, right? So you see we got dawn, sun in the same position, right, at the horizon. And, you know, but in the dawn, this is the sunrise. This is the glory to glory. This is you in a state of moving towards the light, right? But the bottom is dusk. This is the sunset. This could be you moving in a state of darkness, right? So this is literally that choice that has to be made. You got to know, and you need to know for yourself, where am I? Right? Is the light waning in me or is it growing stronger? Right? So just something to keep in mind. Right? Ephesians 6:10, we know this, right? The armor of Elohim. For the rest, my brothers, be strong in the master and in the mightiness of his strength. Put on the complete armor of Elohim for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil. Are we starting to be able to connect some dots on what they was talking about when we understand these two ways, and that, oh no, there's a whole plot that is set against mankind, and it's been this way since day one. It says, put on the complete armor of Elohim for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against authorities, against the world rulers of darkness of this age. We talked about a ruler of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day. And having done all, to stand. Stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying at all times with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, watching in all perseverance and supplication for all the set apart ones, right? So here we got an illustration of this armor, right? And it's a lot of parts of the armor, right? And you looking at it, and as you look at it, you might be like, man, my man's right here. He looking strong. He look fortified, right? But here's the thing that you're gonna have to keep your mind and your eyes on, right? Where are the chinks in your armor? Right? So it's one thing to know where your armor is, but then the next thing is to know where are the chinks in my armor? Right? So a lot of times we focus on, strengthening up and shoring up all of the different areas. That's one part of it, but then you also gonna have to guard the areas that these things aren't quite covering, right? Where it might be a gap, right? You don't have to know your weak points, right? So the question is, do you know your own strengths, right? Do you know your own weak points, right? Now, keep in mind, It's your enemy's job to know this information if he wants to succeed in defeating you. Right? So the enemy knows and is looking and watching, observing to know, well, where are your strengths and where are your weak points? Right? So just keep this in mind. Sorry for how small it is, but I kind of had to put it all in this one slide. Right? So how well do you know you? Right? Keep in mind the adversary knows you and has been observing you to determine where to attack. Right? It talks about this in the text about he seeketh and lieth and wait for the opportune time. Right? So just keep this in mind. It says, the Father will allow you to be struck in the weak points to show you your own weaknesses. So one part of this is to keep you humble. And another part of it is to reveal to you where you lack so you understand that you need him. This is what Shaul referred to when speaking of himself, right? So 2 Corinthians 12:1 says this, to boast, right? This is going to be the thing right here that might get you in some trouble, right? So to boast indeed is useless for me, for I shall go on to visions and revelations of Yahuwah. Right? Some of us have gifts in different areas that is not common to everyone. The Father works in us in a way because this is the tool that he's designated us to be. And everyone has these gifts, these strengths, these things like that makes us unique for the purpose of the body, right? So just keep this in mind, but you don't get it twisted and boast in this thing and think that, oh, you just got it, right? Because you might go and run into some problems, right? What did he say? He says, I know a man in Mashiach who 14 years ago, and they say that he was speaking of himself, whether in the body I do not know, or whether out of the body I do not know. Elohim knows. Such a one was caught up to the third Shamayim, or the third heaven. And I know such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. Elohim knows that he was caught up into paradise and heard unspeakable words, which it is not right for a man to speak. Of such a one I shall boast, but of myself I shall not boast, except in my weaknesses. For if I shall wish to boast, I shall not be a fool, for I shall speak the truth. But I refrain, lest anyone should think more of me than what he sees in me or hears of me, and to keep me from exalting myself because of the exceeding greatness of the revelations. A thorn in my flesh was given to me, a messenger of Shaitan to hit me. So again, these messengers of Hashatan. To keep me from exalting myself. Concerning this, I pleaded with the master 3 times to take it away from me. I cried out to the Father, Father, take this away. Yes. What did the Father say? And he said to me, my favor is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly then, I shall rather boast in my weaknesses, so that the power of Mashiach rest on me. Therefore, I take pleasure in weaknesses, in insults, in needs, and persecutions, in distresses for the sake of Mashiach. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So this means that the Father might leave you something to have to continue to choose between this good and this evil on a daily basis. He's gonna leave something for you to have to make the choice every day. Okay. Like otherwise, where would he get this thing? Right? Oh, okay.
And then if we did feel justified in exalting ourselves, how freely will we cast the next person down?
Blink of an eye, it wouldn't be nothing, right? It literally would be, I don't understand how you don't get this, right? I can't relate. I don't understand. How come you dealing with X, Y, Z, or such and such and such and such, right? But nah, The ways of the Father, it don't work that way. If anybody gonna be esteemed, if anybody gonna be exalted, it's gonna be him, right? That's what he is doing, everything that he's doing for us and for his people, because we already messed our shot up time and time again, right? So literally everything that he's doing it for his name's sake, right? So let us not get that twisted, right? So with that being said, again, like we looked at last week, is that giving us license to sin? Elohim forbid. Right? Just so he can be esteemed and so that he can be glorified? Nah, Elohim forbid. But he gonna leave it there for you to be able to war with this thing to continue to prevail, right? And hey, give him his esteem that's due. Don't boast. Don't make puff yourself up to be any more than what you are, right? And even in what you are, it's better, like he said, for me to hold off on that so that don't nobody see nothing no more in me than what's really there, right? Just something to keep in mind, right? Know your own weaknesses. Chink in one's armor, right? So the phrase, it says, these are some dictionary definitions: a minor but very detrimental flaw or weakness. So a minor but very detrimental flaw, right? It's a small area or it's a small thing, but this thing can be that thing that's the difference between life or death, right? You well covered. It's only a small area, small chink, small gap in the armor. You well covered, but if the sword just so happened, or if an arrow, one of these fiery darts, just so happen to slide in there, you're done.
Like if you mess your one of your fingers or one of your toes up, you can limp, or you can limp with your foot, or maybe your hand is not operating how it normally would if you had all 5 fingers. Same thing.
All praises. Chink in one's armor, it says a special weakness that provides a means for attacking or impressing someone or otherwise invulnerable. Alludes to an opening in a suit of armor that allows a weapon to penetrate. Something to think about, right? A vulnerable area, as in putting things off to the last minute, is the chink in Pat's armor and is bound to get her in trouble one day. This term relies on chink in the sense of a crack or gap, a meaning dating from about 1400 and used figuratively since the mid 1600s. Right? It's idiomatic. It's a weakness, a weak point, particularly of something formerly considered near invincible or perfect. Right? So this is a special warning for you not to boast. Right? Just when you think you fortified and just when you think you strong, like he said, lest any man, don't let a man think he stand lest he fall, right? This is what's going to happen. And the Father is going to make sure that he leave this thing, this thorn in your flesh, just to make sure. Okay, well, if you don't think you done got too high on the horse, let's see what you do with this when I let this one touch you, right? This messenger of Hashatan. Well, let that wind blow your way. Let's see how much strength you got since you got it like that, right? Not realizing that the armor is him. So he's the hedge of protection. So just something to keep in mind, right? This is a day-to-day battle, day-to-day fight, us navigating and walking through these two ways, right? So keep in mind all of the greats that we see in the scriptures, right? Each of them had a thorn in the flesh to keep them grounded. Consider the great kings of Israel and Judah: David, Solomon, Hezekiah, Josiah, right? Like they all have a sad part to the story. They all have a great part to the story, and there was no kings that was greater than these. But then there was also like that thing, right? Josiah is like he going back and forth with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said, mind your business. This ain't got nothing to do with you. Why should you have to die for trying to stand up against us? And he did it anyways, and then boom. His end, he met his end. This is the king that did so many great things for the people, right? Hezekiah, same thing. Father did supernatural, miraculous things, stopped time and did everything. And then yet turn around and you looking a couple chapters later, and now Isaiah got to come to Hezekiah and tell him, hey, yo, bro, you just messed up, right? So we see that this is the pattern that goes forth, right? Or perhaps those that led our people, such as Moses, Aaron, Samson, and the patriarchs and all of their trials. All of these are examples for our learning. Consider what's written. 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. No trial has overtaken you except such as is common to man. And Elohim is trustworthy, who shall not allow you to be tried beyond what you are able, but with the trial shall also make the way of escape, enabling you to bear it.
It makes me think about Shemot or Exodus chapter 13, verses 17 through 18, when it came to be when Pharaoh had let the people go that Elohim did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though that was nearer. For Elohim said, lest the people regret when they see fighting and return to Mizraim. So Elohim led the people around by way of the wilderness of the sea of reeds, and the children of Israel went up in fives by the land of Mizraim. So it just made me think about what would happen if we did not have to fight, or if we had no weaknesses. Abihu knows, we say, oh, we'll be cool, just take it away. No, this has to happen. You have to continue this fight, because those who endure to the end will be saved.
Mm-hmm. All praises. All praises. Hebrews 12 and 3, it says, for consider him who endured such opposition from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and faint in your lives. You have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. And you have forgotten the appeal which speaks to you as to sons. My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahuwah, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For whom Yahuwah loves, he disciplines and flogs every son whom he receives. If you endure discipline, Elohim is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom a father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which all have become sharers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Moreover, we indeed have fathers of our flesh disciplining us, and we paid them respect. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they indeed disciplined us for a few days as seemed best to them, but he does it for our profit, so that we might share his apartness. And indeed, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but grievous. But afterward, it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So strengthen the hands which hang down and the weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, lest the lame be turned aside, but instead to be healed. Pursue peace with all, and pursue set apartness or apartness, without which no one shall see the master. See to it that no one falls short of the favor of Elohim, that no root of bitterness springing up causes trouble, by which many become defiled, lest there be anyone who whores or profane one, like Esau, who for a single meal sold his birthright. For you know that afterward, when he wished to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place for repentance, though he sought it with tears. All right, so there's some stuff to keep in mind. Right, so here are some things for us to keep in mind as we go through this process together, but as individuals. Right, so what are your weaknesses? It's a question for you to ask yourself and for you to get an intimate knowledge and understanding of. Right, and by you I mean us, we. Like I'm currently dead smack in this process. You know what I mean? Like, being all the way honest, like I don't have to use anybody else as an example for this. I can use myself. Right. So question, can your weaknesses really be a misuse or abuse of your strengths? Right. So now notice we talking about this full armor, and we can be very fortified and strong in some areas, but can these things be misused or abused and actually be what our weakness is, actually open up the chink in our armor? Right. It comes down to that arrogance, to that boasting, things like that. When you get into that state, that's really what it is. Like, from a carnal perspective and in the eyes of men, you do have a reason to boast. Right. Oh, this brother is so great with this, or this sister is so great with this. But the minute that you boast in it, that strength becomes a weakness. Right. So, all praises. So, can your weaknesses really be a misuse or abuse of your strengths / gifts that the Father has given you to perform His will? Right. So this is just a question for you to consider. Right. Some of, or even some of the quote unquote thorns in your flesh, could they be stemming from, I got mad at XYZ, or I got angered or frustrated. We'll use something that's simple, right? Frustrated with XYZ, but it really stemmed in, like Ak was just saying, nah, when you think you got it all, then you don't have no patience for the next individual. Because you act like you don't have any understanding or compassion, right? So really a thing that could have been your strength and used to uplift and build up another and show them the way, you really can let it be the weapon that's formed against you, right? Are your weaknesses triggered by something unresolved in you? Right. So this may cause things to manifest in one way, but really the root is found in something else. Right. So what practical steps can you take towards healing previous jabs or breaches in the armor? Right. So just some things to keep in mind is there a trauma, or is there something unresolved that, though you might be strong in all of these other areas, you might open up a gap in the armor? That's the sore spot, right? That's the one thing that, but when that button get pushed, right, it's out to lunch, right? And if you don't realize what the root of that thing is, it might keep manifesting itself as anger, but really is something else, right? It might manifest itself in all kinds of ways, but really the root of it is in some sort of trauma or some sort of lack in the area that you compensating for, or this is your defense or stronghold towards dealing with it, is this is how I lash out against said thing, right? So just some things to keep in mind, because again, the adversary know. Like, keep in mind, the one who you warring and you fighting against, he know where these weak points are. So it's up to you. You best know it too, right? The Father is there trying to heal, but if you don't want the healing, or if you don't acknowledge this is the chink, you won't defend it, right? You won't protect it. So, and then where do you need extra defense in your armor, right? So in one area you literally just might have a weak point in your armor. We didn't talk about that, right? Where in all of these things, the helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness, shield of faith, sword of the spirit, you might be better in one of these areas than the other, because nobody has it all, right? So you might be really, really good with the word, but then when it comes to the moment where the rubber meets the road, and it's like, I'm either going to believe or I'm not going to believe. I'm either going to have faith in what the Father is doing or not. Yeah, I know the word says this, I can quote it, but then when that moment comes, I'm scared and I'm operating in a ruach of fear, right? I know this, but do I really believe it for myself? I don't know. Right now, you warning yourself, and now you open yourself up to the attacks by the enemy, right? So like this, and on one side of it, yeah, you can have an individual who really is solid in the armor of Elohim, and there's still a chink in the armor, or you can be weak in some areas and stronger in some others, right? You might have the be great orator and great at being able to express the good news of the kingdom, right? But might be weak with the truth, right? What you expressing might be a little bit faulty with truth, right? I mean, we see that in the pulpits all the time, right? They have a gift, but it might be lacking in some other areas to really be effective in doing the will of the Father, right? And this is not just commenting, just nobody. Like I said, this is mirror talk. This is everyone, right? And if it ain't for you, I can say it's for me, right? So that's where I'm at with it. But where do you need extra defense in your armor, right? Know where your weak points are, right? Some might be great studiers and be great in study, but might be weak in prayer, right? Some might be great in prayer, but weak in study. Some might, be great in charity and being around people, being there for people, right? But, the list goes on and on and on where a person might have weaknesses and strengths, right? The goal of the conversation is for you to examine self and know yours, right? Because like I said, the adversary knows, and the ignorance is worse than the sin. If you don't know, it ain't going to stop you from getting beat up on, whether you know or not.
If you don't know, it ain't going to stop you from perishing.
Mhm. All praises. All praises. All right, so now we're gonna get to the home stretch. All right, appreciate the patience. Achieving oneness, right? So, with all this being said, the Father desires for us to be one with Him. The question then becomes, what will occur if we willingly choose, or if we willfully choose what is contrary to Him? Notice this is what we are being shown through Mashiach. We are being shown how to be in a state of oneness with the Father. Though we be in the world, we are not of the world. And though we be in the flesh, we are not of the flesh. So again, remember the whole of the Torah is that we are one with Elohim and that we are one with one another, right? John 15:1. He says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that bears no fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Stay in me, and I stay in you. And as the branch is unable to bear fruit of itself unless it stays in the vine, so neither you unless you stay in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. And he who stays in me and I in him, he bears much fruit, because without me you are able to do naught. If anyone does not stay in me, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up. And they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you stay in me and my words stay in you, you shall ask whatever you wish, and it shall be done for you. In this my Father is esteemed, that you bear much fruit, and you shall be my taught ones. As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Stay in my love. If you guard my commands, you shall stay in my love, even as I have guarded my Father's commands and stay in his love. These words I have spoken to you so that my joy might be in you and that your joy might be complete. Wholeness or state of oneness. This is my command, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, that one should lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. All praises. I've taught on that. All praises. John chapter 10:29. It says, my Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. Right? So this is the state that Mashiach is trying to show us how to achieve. Right? John 17:1, it says, Yahusha said these words and lifted up his eyes to the Shamayim or heavens and said, Father, the hour has come. Esteem your son so that your son also might esteem you. As you have given him authority over all flesh, that he should give everlasting life to all whom you have given him. And this is everlasting life, that they should know you and the only true Elohim, and Yahusha Mashiach whom you have sent. I have esteemed you on the earth, having accomplished the work you have given me that I should do. And now esteem me with yourself, Father, with the esteem which I had with you before the world was. I have revealed your name to the men whom you gave me out of the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have guarded your word. Now they have come to know that all you gave to me is from you, because the words which you gave to me I have given to them, and they have received them, and have truly known that I came forth from you, and they believed that you sent me. I pray for them. I do not pray for the world, but for those whom you have given me, for they are yours. And all mine are yours, and yours are mine, and I have been esteemed in them. And I am no more in the world, but these are in the world, and I come to you. Set apart, Father, guard them in your name, which you have given me, so that they might be one as we are one. He says, when I was with them in the world, I was guarding them in your name, which you have given me, and I watched over them, and not one of them perished except the son of destruction, that the scripture might be filled. And now I come to you, and I speak these words in the world, so that they have my joy completed in them. I have given them your word, and the world hated them because they are not of the world, and I am not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the wicked one. They are not of the world, as I am not of the world. Set them apart in your truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also sent them into the world. And for them, I set myself apart, so that they too might be set apart in truth. And I do not pray for these alone, but also for those believing in me through their word, so that they all might be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, so that they too might be one in us, so that the world might believe that you have sent me. And the esteem which you gave me, I have given them, so that they might be one as we are one. I in them and you in me, so that they might be perfected into one, so that the world knows that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me. Father, I desire that those whom you have given me might be with me where I am, so that they may see my esteem, which you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, indeed, the world did not know you, but I knew you, and these knew that you sent me. And I have made your name known to them, and shall make it known, so that the love with which you loved me might be in them, and I in them. Right, and then we got Philippians 2:1. It says, if then there is any encouragement in Mashiach, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of spirit, if any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, having the same love, one in being and of purpose, doing none at all through selfishness or self-conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each one should look out not only for its own interest, but also for the interest of others. For let this mind be in you, which was also in Mashiach Yahushua, who being in the form of Elohim did not regard equality with Elohim a matter to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, and came to be in the likeness of men. And having been found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, death even of a stake. Elohim therefore has highly exalted him and given him the name which is above every name, that the name of Yahusha, that at the name of Yahusha every knee should bow, of those in heaven and of those on earth and of those under the earth, and of every tongue should confess that Yahusha HaMashiach is master, to the esteem of Elohim the Father. Right, and then we got Ephesians chapter 2, starting at verse 13. It says, but now in Mashiach Yahusha, you who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of the Mashiach. For he is our peace, who has made both one, having broken down the partition of the barrier, and having abolished in his flesh the enmity, these two ways, the Torah of the commands and dogma, so as to create in himself one renewed man from the two. So this is something that even Mashiach himself had to overcome. Thus making peace, and to completely restore to favor both them unto Elohim in one body through the state, having destroyed the enmity by it. Right. So he's trying to show us how to get rid of this enmity between these two ways and these two paths. Remember, it said that they're set one against the other, right? He's trying to show us how to complete this battle and how to bring these two into one, right? Not saying it's easy, not even saying I have accomplished or achieved it. I'm just saying that I know one who did, right? So this is what Mashiach is trying to show us how to do. what to, how to succeed in this battle. Right? It says, and having come, he has brought as good news peace to you who are far off and peace to those near, because through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit. So then, you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens of the set apart ones and members of the household of Elohim, having been built upon the foundation of the emissaries and prophets, Yahushua Mashiach himself being chief cornerstone, in whom all the building being joined together grows into a set apart dwelling place in Yahuwah, in whom you also are being built together into a dwelling of Elohim in the Spirit. All right. So all praises. So with that being said, yeah. Shalom, right? Hebrews 4:11 again. We back with our man with the sword, right? Let us therefore do our utmost to enter into that rest, lest anyone fall after the same example of disobedience. For the word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and spirit and of joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all are naked and laid bare before the eyes of him with whom is our account, right? So, yeah. With that being said, this is part 2B of unity, oneness in self, right? Hopefully it was edifying, enlightening, and made plain enough that we can all take something from it and just try to move forward in this thing. We got it, Mishpachai, as long as, we keep looking to the Father, looking through Mashiach, and keep on fighting, trying to go glory from glory to glory. It's been laid out for us, and it's not an impossible task that's laid out in front of us. It's an achievable task. So it's not easy, it's hard pressed, but we can do it. So that was pretty much the essence of what I wanted us to get out of this one. I know it started, this part of the lesson kind of started on, even with last week, like, looking at the battle, like, how can it be achieved? How can it be attained? Right. But hopefully we see that what we're doing is we just laying out the truth, laying out and showing what the goal is, and saying, all right, evaluate self, see where you are in this. And now you know the steps, or at least the direction in which we need to go to get to the destination. Right. So that's really what the goal of this lesson is. And we're going to continue moving in that vein until we get through this particular series. So yeah, with that, I'm told me old, I'm done. I yield, and shalom.
Say stuff, so later.
I just
All right.
I just wanted to say Tada Abiyahua for allowing us to work on ourselves, because it's often overlooked. And Tada Abiyah, hallelujah. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the ability for me to work on me, and just for us to be honest with ourselves, to acknowledge the areas, admit, and just focus, and just daily make the effort to choose good and to do better. It's deep. It's very deep, but like you were saying, we can do it. We can make it through. Yahusha did it. And so hallelujah. Yes, as always, excellent lesson.
All praises to the King. You know what he's doing.
Indeed. Definitely a total blessing and an encouragement. Realizing that every day will be a fight until our time is up. Doing our best to stay encouraged to continue to fight on the right path and for the right reasons, that it be not used against us and ultimately not be told but be evil. Yeah. All praises.
Mhm.
All praises to the Most High. Likewise, I just echo what the Akoti over there was saying is just thank the Most High for being able to work on ourselves. You
Mhm.
know, we do often spend a lot of time looking at everything else around us. You know,
Mhm.
getting caught up with everything else that's outside of us when the biggest thing that we can affect and can control is what's inside of us. Not
Mhm.
only what goes inside of us, but what comes out from inside of us. You know, so
Mhm.
praises unto the Most High. Definitely told lesson again. Um, whole vein that the lessons have been in from SATC until all the way up until from all of the lessons, just extremely internally focused. And so yeah, because that's the biggest. That's what we need.
Mhm. There's a path where no bird of prey is. Lions whelp haven't trodden it. There's a place where you won't be made prey. And the entrance of it is narrow.
Mhm.
It's not it's a real restricted or limited path when it comes to free will options. Like, yeah, you have free will, but you have to choose to yield it to the creator in the direction he's trying to steer you in. And
Mhm.
with that, you're on your way toward the broad, to
Mhm.
where there's liberty and you can exercise true freedom.
Mhm.
To be one with the Father, we got to watch out for those things that want to distract us and get us out of bounds.
Mhm.
Where we're no longer one with Him, but we're back one with this flesh.
Mhm. Mhm.
It gets deep.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
praises. May
All
we,
praises.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, may we be strengthened in our endurance and perseverance as we travel.
Mhm.
So
All praises. I did want to add one more thing. Um, don't shy away from the process. Like that's the only way we're gonna get where the Father is trying to get us is by looking at self as He sees self, look in the mirror, acknowledge, hey, yo, no, this is where I am. This is, I thought I was a little bit better in this area, not quite, right? I thought, XYZ, or hey, you might not have thought nothing. You might just flat out know, right? Like bottom line of it is wherever you are, you know, accept that that's where you are in that moment and in that stage, and move forward from that point, moving glory from glory to glory, right? It's the not being willing to do that'll get you shut out, right? As long as he's giving you an opportunity, like there's hope yet and still for you to get this thing together. So that's my encouragement with the lesson. Like I said, we talking about these two ways. Um, and yeah, definitely want everybody to understand that while we might not necessarily be where we want to be yet, like acknowledge this is where I am, and Father, how would you have me to move to get where you trying to get me to get? And that right there, that's setting us up for the win. If I could simplify all of it in a nutshell. So yeah, all praises. Now with that, I yield.
All praises.
all praises to the Most High. I don't have any announcements or anything special to say or that is coming up or anything like that. Does anybody else have anything like that?
No, I don't.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. All praises to the Most High. Well, may the Most High keep us. With that being said, may the Most High keep us. May the Most High hear us in our times of distress. May He make us exponentially more than we are this day. May it be for our toil, but not for our destruction. And to everybody out there, everybody that's watching, shalom, Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Mm.
Shalom.